Hello all. Well, we're inside because it's too windy outside today, and I wanted to do some updates on a lot of the information I've been getting. Let's go over to the board and look at what's happening to our World Heritage forests, especially the old growth. They're cutting them down as fast as Trump will allow it, which is lightning fast. Okay, here in the U.S., the Orange Man has decided to open up the Tongass National Forest, which is a roadless area. Very little logging is allowed in the Tongass. That's all about to change. The U.S. plans to open up the roadless areas in the Tongass National Forest on all 9.2 million acres. This will make logging more cost-effective. The Tongass is one of the last intact temperate rainforests on Earth. The plant, 17,000 acres of old growth and 11,500 acres of young growth forest will be added to the already planned cutting scheme that they have in mind. The Forest Service will allow 45 million board feet of additional lumber to be cut. One of the biggest timber sales ever is 245 million board feet of old growth harvest in the Tongass. This is a good example of where you can do some good. You could vote in a leader who will not touch the Tongass forest and cut the last big standing old growth forest down, just so it's more efficient to get more lumber for the building industry. How much global climate change will this cause? Well, when you cut down a tree, instead of soaking up CO2, as it breaks down the tree and the stump and all the roots and all the leaves, as they break down, it releases CO2 back in the atmosphere. So here we have a major cut scheme from the U.S. that will take a ton of CO2 and put it back in the air, which will cause global climate heating. Now, the global doomers are so determined to have global dimming somehow cause global heating, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about global dimming. The globe dims and brightens as long as the planet has been here. Thousands of years ago, before industry, the globe was clean other than volcanoes and dust storms, and it never went into global climate heating to where it kills us off. But if we cut down all of our forests, that will cause global climate change to an extreme, putting that much CO2 in the atmosphere and taking away the wilderness where what few animals are left can live. How many billions of animals will die because they're clear cutting the Tongass National Forest? But we're going to spend so much energy and bother over global dimming, which we can't do anything about. Why bother with it? According to the science, global dimming is about, that much? Quarter of an inch? Whereas CO2 going up, causing global heating, is about it's huge. It's so much bigger than global dimming will ever be. We should pay attention to the big things first, and as we fix those, then we can go into the smaller things. Global dimming wouldn't even really have any effect for over 100 years, while this will have an immediate effect of causing the climate to warm even faster and even more. But we're going to worry about global dimming. That's not the only place we could pay attention to. There's another thing we have to worry about is methane. Methane, let's go over to the board. I'll show you what I mean. So there's been a new study out. Methane is almost 1/2 of human-made global warming. Methane equals 30% increase of global emissions by 2050 if we don't get methane under control. To stay below 1.5C, we must achieve a 30 to 50% reduction of methane by 2050. Methane leaks must be cut by 2020 by 25% to stay in line with 1.5C. Emissions from burning fossil fuels has been vastly underestimated. Methane emissions from burning fossil fuels is 40% higher than previously thought. Methane emissions have increased by 150% over the past 3 centuries. This study says that we have 10 years to save the Earth. 10 years. Now, do we have any time to worry about global dimming? So there's been all kinds of new studies on CO2 emissions. Cars are responsible for about 12% of the total CO2 emissions. Now, we have to get this under control by 2020, or it's going to be too late. Let's look at this graph, and I'll just let you guys watch it, and you'll see that we are in a big bunch of trouble, and that we need to pay attention to things that are far more important than global dimming. You could take all the global dimming out of the picture and you wouldn't even change anything, hardly at all. We have to pay attention to things like CO2, methane emissions, tree cutting, dam building, fresh water, sand being taken away, so there's no more sand for turtles and things to lay their eggs in. There's so many more important things than global dimming. It's just the tiniest little thing. And we've got so many bigger things to worry about than global dimming. And that's why I say, let's not worry about that. Let's let that little tiny global dimming go by, and let's pay attention to CO2, methane, road building, tree cutting, meat eating, the big things. And we have to do this within the year, or we're not going to make 1.5C. We're just not going to make it. So that means that people have to vote progressives in so that we can begin to set up all the infrastructure that is needed to have a society of electricity. We'll be using electric only, or steam power, that kind of thing, but not fossil fuel. We cannot do fossil fuel. And we can't be wasting our time worrying about global dimming. So anyway, by the way, the sulfur is going down, not up. So the sulfur argument over global dimming doesn't make any sense, because sulfur emissions are down. They're not up. They're flat. They're actually kind of flat as far as humans go. But CO2 and methane and car driving is up by a huge amount. And if people really honestly want to deal with the environmental movement, they'd reduce their driving by at least half, and they'd start riding a bicycle, which would take care of their own health and not have to worry about going to the hospital all the time. There's so many things that we need to focus on, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to worry about global dimming. So I do appreciate all the comments on the last video, the ups, the downs, and the new comments. And until next time.